Perfect. Let's get this started. I'm Raghu Vatte, Field CTO and VP Product Management from Zededa. And I have with me Claudio Fayad. Do you won't mind introducing yourself?
Sure. I'm Claudio Fayad. I'm the Vice President of Technology for Emerson. I'm directly responsible for the strategy and the product development for our Delta V control systems and safety systems, and I'm joining Raghu here today.
Nice. Yeah. Right. Before we get started, when I was trying to put together the deck for today's talk, I actually kind of struggled with this slide. I was thinking, should it go first? Should it go into the deck at all? Because whenever we talk about this slide or different variations of this slide, I'm pretty sure you would have seen this or variations of this multiple times over, right? I get different kinds of reactions. One reaction is people's eyes just glaze over, they roll their eyes, and they're like, oh, I have seen this, like, why are you bringing this back to me? Then I see another set of reactions where like, hey, this is something that we have tried, it kind of works, but like, I don't know how to make it fully work. That's another one. And the third set of reactions is like, hey, this is something we are on this journey. We are marching forward on this journey. We know like how to get to there, and we are on this journey, and like I want to learn more about it and everything, right? And most probably, not even most probably, I pretty much know that all of those reactions are correct. Okay, and today, like I want to talk about like what is this, but more importantly, what is causing the adoption of this ecosystem, which consists of Industry 4.0 and industrial automation, including the IoT. What is stopping it from being adapted much more quickly, much more widely? And how can Zededa help make it simplified? Again, Zededa is a very small part of the picture, right? Like we are not the industrial automation company. We are helping our partners like Emerson here make it easier. Again, this is a small part of the puzzle. We are not boiling the ocean here, but this is still an essential piece of the puzzle that is going to make this whole journey possible and make this a reality, if not now, in the near future. Okay? And before we get into the details of it, I just wanted to capture what is it that I hear from my customers when I talk to them in terms of like what is important to them. And again, especially this audience here, you guys really lived through this one. Like I come from an IT background. I've been doing this for like almost 6 years right now, but still, I know for a fact, talking to people have been doing it for decades, and like there is a lot of knowledge in this room, in this conference, but also a lot of desire to like take it to the next step, because you have seen what are the problems that are happening in your plants on a daily basis. One of the big things that almost bubbles up to the top is like there is an aspiration or a need for optimizing your current workflows. Okay, there needs to be a flexibility and customization that is built in, and more importantly, if you want to do something, it should be possible, and it shouldn't take forever to make that happen. Again, quick adoption. And again, we are not talking about changing things dynamically on a daily basis, like in a data center or in a cloud environments, right? Like these are all very controlled things, but still, you need to be able to do this, make these changes happen in a reasonable amount of time. People are not willing to wait for years and years together to see these small things happen or like these incremental things happen. And this all goes back to the power of the data and how new services can be implemented and how the data that is present in these plants, in various different component systems, can be used to create these new services. Now, it's not just about the data, but the context of the data is equally important. Without that context, you cannot be able to you won't be able to solve a lot of these issues that you want to solve. And also the availability of that context, not only with people in the plants, but across the enterprise. And others actually being able to use that data and provide or create new services, okay? These are again aspirations, right? This is not something that I'm saying is happening today. In some cases it is happening, but a lot of people want to get to this state. It's not an end state, it's just one of the future states, okay? And that means like everyone is talking about building these smart plants, building autonomous plants, and digitizing everything, okay? And connecting them across systems. And when we talk about connections, it's both northbound, southbound, east-west, right? You are talking about like having a 5G connectivity between sensors and systems everywhere, but also having a new age Ethernet connectivity, and also maintaining the southbound connectivity, which is like everything from your USBs to serial ports to Ethernets to GPUs nowadays that are connecting to cameras and other systems, right? So these are all the kind of things that are being asked to be delivered in this new paradigm. And we hear a lot about different types of hardware. Should we be like investing in specialized hardware that is going to do some specific functions? Or should we be going into the mode of having our solutions or the applications run on commodity hardware so that I can drive my costs down, but more importantly, have an answer for supply chain demand issues and like making sure there is no real vendor lock-in. All of those kind of things bubble up. And these are the aspirations. We want to solve all of these things. And obviously, the applications themselves or the stack of applications that create the solutions that you want to like use to provide the outcomes out at the edge, okay? Again, AI is being talked about quite a bit. AI at the edge, I see that happening both in industrial, but also in other verticals. And it is going to happen, okay? Now, but even if we discount AI applications, there is still a lot of sophistication that is being built into these applications. And the full lifecycle management of these applications, how do you enable the service, but also how do you manage the service, go through the whole lifecycle, is something that is becoming more and more important. And once you remove these hurdles, or once you achieve this, then the first slide becomes more and more a reality, right? So people now started talking about like, or once this happens, talking about Industrial 4.0 or Industry 4.0 or a full-fledged industrial automation becomes more of a reality, and now you are not thinking about, hey, should I invest in it because I don't know whether it is real or not, whether it can be achievable or not. But now you have a systematic plan of going forward, okay? Now, I do want to talk about a few challenges before we get into the next slides. And there are a bunch of them, okay? I'm not going to stand here and tell you who are living this on a daily basis that like this is the exhaustive set of challenges, right? There are a bunch of them. But the important things are, at least, and correct me if I'm wrong after this call, but like the top of the thing is like data access and management. It's not just enough to have the data, it's not just enough to be able to generate the data, store the data, but it should be made available to people. But also at the same time, this is the IP. This is the valuable bits that you are generating out of your plants, and like you don't want it available to anyone and everyone. You want it to be in a controlled manner, secure, and be able to like provide this information to the end user, and provide it in such a way that like it doesn't compromise your security posture, right? That is something that like if we have to solve that to make this whole thing happen. We talked about the applications and services that we are going to be deploying, and the complex application lifecycle management is something that needs to be handled. And if you can handle this complex lifecycle management across a large fleet of assets, not just in one place, right? You should be able to do this across a large fleet of assets and be able to set a policy at a high level and be able to like disperse or like inherit, or your asset should be able to inherit that policy rather than 10 people touching different sites, each in a different way. So that is something that is going to make the application management process happen. Now, trust and security, and I should definitely add trust, security, and safety are really, really important. Again, I was talking to Claudio the other day, and like one of the things that he mentioned was that historically these systems have been designed so that they are isolated, right? And one of the things that the isolation brings you is implicitly it also makes it secure because first of all, even if something happens, your blast radius is contained. And because they are not connected to each other, then the probability of something getting hacked or some mistake happening to a particular system is also limited. But now what we are saying is hey, we want to connect everything. This is the new age, and we want to be able to connect everything, make data-driven decisions, all of these things. But on the other hand, you turn around and say, I want a much more stricter security posture. So you are asking for something that is contradicting each other. I mean, it's not a real contradiction if you have the correct architecture, but this is something that we need to remove this hurdle to actually get to that next step. That brings me to the next point, which is the availability of skill set. Availability of skill set is a real issue. And I will talk about Zededa and what we do. And one of the things we do is address multiple verticals. And this is the problem everywhere, okay? When you are talking about a large data center, or when you are talking about large or local data centers, you can actually afford to have this skill set available because you are now dealing with complex applications, which also means that people who are managing it needs to have a certain level of skill, and that is not available. And most of the time, these sites might also be small. I mean, I deal with oil and gas vertical where a site can only consist of 10 to 20 assets. You are not going to send a whole IT team to manage that 20 assets. I mean, it's just not possible, right? So now you should be able to have an answer that mitigates this lack of skill set or lack of availability of skill set out in the field. And the last thing, and again, I have to say this is something that I learned on the job, is that it is to understand that everyone is in a different stage of this digitization journey. Not everyone is at the same place. Not everyone is beginning the journey, or not everyone is almost done and now we are looking at just the optimizations, right? So now, because everyone is in a different stage, you need to have a solution that will take you from A to B to C to your final state or the future state. And you shouldn't be pulling the rug underneath yourself every time you go from one stage to another. You should have that solution that can actually take you from A to B, right? And this is something that is very, very tricky. I had product at Zededa, and we really, really concentrate on this, making sure that we give that path. And this path is not just about going from A to B. It is about risk mitigation in my mind. When you are going to go and talk to your boss and say, hey, we are going to be on this digitization journey. Okay, I'll see you in 2 years from now, right? Okay, I'm going to digitize everything and come back 2 years from now, and we are going to push that to the production plan. People are going to laugh at you. So that is never going to happen. That's too much of a risk to take. So now you need to be able to give that path where you start from A, you go to B, but then do it in a very controlled manner. So these are the kind of challenges that we saw. And we saw these things in multiple different verticals. I mean, manufacturing is one which was very ripe. They were actually ahead of the game compared to other verticals. But this is something that we saw across. And I've been with Zededa for over 5 years, almost 5 out of the 6.5 years of our existence. Right from the beginning, what we wanted to do was build a horizontal platform that addresses most of the common needs across these verticals. But then also build the vertical workflows that address the specific needs of a vertical and make sure that we enable the edge for them, okay? We have been doing this successfully. We have tremendous traction in energy, oil and gas, automotive, manufacturing, building automation, and again, solar fields comes into energy. But these are the verticals that actually were ahead of the game compared to others. And they have the need to monetize the edge. They have the need to optimize and bring outcomes out of the edge. In fact, our top 10 customers are global 500 companies. And again, this is another characteristic too, right? You guys are all huge companies, which means that like you are these huge cruise ships and you don't move fast, like, and you don't turn on right angles, right? And for a very good reason, because a lot of critical infrastructure is dependent on what you deliver. And you need a solution that can actually help you do that, okay? And again, I keep reminding myself over and over again, okay? Zededa, what we provide is this small piece of a puzzle, essential piece of the puzzle of this whole big ecosystem that needs to come to fruition. But there are a lot of hurdles you need to remove out of the way, and I think like what we set out to do is removing one big hurdle of edge orchestration and management, or edge management and orchestration. And this has shown us, we see a lot of positive trends on this, both from our own customers and our traction in the markets. But also from, we are a VC-backed company, and like we have raised around $127 million to date. And a lot of our customers are also our strategic investors, or people who started out as the strategic investors have since become our customers. So this is something that like a very good positive feedback we are getting from the market. Now talking about what we do, I talked about a lot of nice things, building castles in the sky, but I also want to like get to the details and figure out and let you know that what exactly we do. Our motto, or like a vision statement, one of the vision statements when we started out with is like, edge is the new cloud, okay? There were a lot of innovations that happened in the in the cloud space over the past decade or more actually. And a lot of organizations have invested heavily in it, both in terms of like investing in like creating that infrastructure, but also invested in the skill set inside the organizations to build these things up. So what we wanted to do was provide a solution where like you can take all the things, all the investments and the skill set that you have accrued in the cloud and get it back into the edge. You shouldn't be like throwing away all your knowledge that you accrued in the cloud just because now you are dealing with the edge. So it should be somewhat similar, and it should feel like it is a continuum of what is happening. Yeah? So for that, what we did is like we built a central orchestration system. It is offered as a SaaS service, but it has other form factors as on-prem and others too. But like a central orchestration system that can manage your assets across globally distributed sites, okay? And your assets can be pieces of hardware, applications running on it, policy, or like people and access to the people, all of these things together, right? We also understood right from the beginning that security is something that is really paramount at the edge, especially because these things are going to run in places that are either do not have physical security, perimeter security, or they might not have the value of enough value that you would actually go ahead and install a physical firewall or other security measures around it. You should still be able to operate these things. So we built security right into the product. We started, our security is built into the architecture, and we can provide security and trust right from the silicon all the way to applications, data, and policy and people, which is actually like the really important thing, but also a really, really tricky and a hard thing to achieve if you have to do that across all these things. So that is something that we built right from day one into our product. We also knew that like zero-touch service enablement is really, really important. But it's not just about service enablement, but enabling and managing the whole life cycle of those solutions out in the edge is really important. One, it makes your time to service very, very quick. But more importantly, what it does is like it mitigates the lack of skill set or the availability of skill set out in the field, because now you don't need to have these 10 tickets that needs to be raised to have some service enabled, and each ticket being served by somebody who is skilled in serving that one, right? That is something that is very important. And we have seen this as a very big value add for our solution across all verticals, not just manufacturing. And we also understood that like our solution needs to be hardware agnostic. Again, I come, like I mentioned earlier, I come from a IT background, or I had like almost 15, 16 years of experience in IT. And when I walk into a data center or a colo or even like a cloud infrastructure, it's huge. There are like the volumes are great, but when you look at the hardware, there are only 3 or 4 vendors or 4 or 5 hardware vendors. Now, it's the same thing. If you look at the networking equipment, there are 4 or 5, right? The variety is very small. So once the variety is very small, it is very easy to like consume that variety. But once I started doing edge, and like you guys know this, the variety is huge. I mean, like I have seen all different types of end devices, edge devices. And the kind of things that are done with these edge devices, first I used to say like, why would anyone do this? I mean, why would you take like 4 PCIs and like put it onto one controller? Okay, what are you getting? You're getting $1 out of it. You're saving $1 on the cogs. But then once you start looking at the volumes, oh yeah, it makes perfect sense, right? Like you're no longer talking about 1,000 or 10,000 of these devices. You're talking of hundreds of thousands and millions of these devices, and it makes perfect sense. Now, we should be able to handle that hardware diversity at the edge. If we don't handle that, then it is going to be a problem. And that is what we built directly into the system, right from connectivity. If you have LTE, yes, that is good. If you have Ethernet, that is good. If you want to use USBs, audio ports, or GPUs, or anything in between, that's all good, right? So those are the things that we did. But what we also did is like, we said, it's not just enough for hardware to for our solution to be hardware agnostic, but it has to be also application form factor agnostic, okay? So we support virtual machines, containers, container runtimes, all on the same box if you want to. And the reason why we did this is not for the bleeding edge, cutting edge thing, which is definitely one of the reasons, but this gives you that gradual risk mitigated path to go and go through your digitization journey. So you know you are not doing a lift and shift of things and coming back a year later saying that, oh, let me now try this thing out, right? So those are the kind of decisions we have done in our product. We built a lot of services, everything from remote access to inventory, security, connectivity services, and much more, so that like you don't have to go to 10 different places to build that solution, including auditing and compliance and everything else, right? So we built that into the system. And we also built it in such a way that like there is an API for everything. Like we are an API first company. And the reason for that is the realization right from the beginning of the things that I said. We are a small part of the puzzle. We are going to come and integrate with the larger business logic, which you guys own, all right? So, and when we integrate, it shouldn't be a one-time job or like a snowflake every time somebody wants to integrate. So being an API first company, it is easy to integrate, and because it is also something that is based on standards, you can actually do it in a way that you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you want to make a change. Yeah. We also built a marketplace into the system that stores a lot of the typical applications, popular applications, but more importantly, reference architectures that you can use to do a lot of things that are like very normal when you go from one use case to another use case. You can use them as is, you can use them as a blueprint and improve upon them. If you have your own customers, then you can use our marketplace to distribute your applications to your customers. So these are all the kind of things that we built into the system. But I think like the most important differentiating factor for Zededa, in my view, and I am definitely a little biased, is that like the 5 or 6 years that we spent learning the workflows and talking to customers, our customers who are actually going through this journey and having to deal with these pain points on a daily basis. So we learned from them, we learned their workflows, and then we built a lot of the things back into the product so that like our next customer doesn't have to go through that. But also creating that boundary where like you are not going to take something from one to another too, right? Like these are the common components that form that horizontal plane, okay? And again, one of the folks that we worked with very, very closely is Claudia's group at Emerson, and we learned a lot from them. We got a lot of those things into our product, and we are seeing a lot of improvement both in the product, but also the experience that Emerson and their operators are having, pushing their products out to the market. With that, like, Claudia, you want to say something about the journey and like your experiences?
Yeah, good. Thank you. So I don't know if you realize, but I love what Raghu said. I mean, we're just working on that for 6 years, making him the new and modern one, and I'm the old one because I've been working on that for 30 years, right? So that's
I didn't
how
say
these
old.
conversations go. But my job here is to show how we've been leveraging the Zededa technology. But before we go there, we've been here for now 3 days, and we had a lot, like Raghu said, we had a lot of great presentations and debates about the new challenge a lot of the end users are facing, right? Driving more product because they're critical to our society, and at the same time, drive more the cost down, more efficiency, more sustainability, which is changing the world in the sense that it's changing the challenge, require more optimizations, more complex optimizations out there, which then drives the need to break all the systems that used to be air-gapped and all the data there actually connected so that data can flow and be used for things like AI. And we talked a lot about AI on these past 2 days, so it can actually drive that extra optimization that will then drive the operational efficiency, the high levels of operational efficiency needed everywhere. But it's a very complex topic, especially when we consider we can't erase the installed base and start from scratch. We have to protect the installed base and help them move along. I mean, that's what all us want. And the other thing is cybersecurity, right? I mean, we spent a whole day talking about cybersecurity. The idea of connecting these systems are great. The idea of bringing new modern IT technologies into OT, it's a powerful one, but we have to keep in mind the risk profile, the impact profile, it's different in OT and IT systems. The impact, the mission critical nature of those. So I'm not gonna go too much on this, but we have kind of summarized this challenge into what we call boundless automation. And you can hear a lot about that online or see videos. And fundamentally is the recognition that automation, for many reasons, good reasons, it was created in a siloed way. We talked about digital twins, operator training systems, DCSs, PLCs, reliability system, lab system, they're all created different. The software kind of trapped into those systems. On top of that, we talked about Purdue model. I think we talked about the Purdue model at least 10 times on the last 2 days, where you put level 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have those vertical and horizontal silos. But when we talk about the optimizations we need to do, when we talk about AI and AI needs data, those silo data will not help. Not only the data is placed on different databases, but it's categorized in different ways. So the boundless automation is the vision where we bring it all together under one context, right, to democratize data. The other thing we talked a lot, I was very excited to see, is a lot of discussion about the need to decouple data from the software. That's how you democratize data. So when we look at boundless automation, it's a simplified vision where you have an infrastructure fabric, if you will, of the embedded nature of PLCs and control systems with the environments that will allow us to run the software that we have today, like virtualization environments, hyperconverged environments, but then extending that to an edge environment into the cloud environment. And overlaying on that integrated environment, the data fabric, allowing the applications, the new and the existing ones, to run anywhere in the cloud, in the edge, on-prem, inside the control system, or even in the embedded space. And that it's going to be achieved by evolving control systems like Delta V to actually become that fabric. And that's where Zededa and the partnership between Zededa and Emerson was very, very critical. So I don't know if all of you know Delta V, but as a control system, we have our embedded layer, we have the controllers, we have the I/O cards, gateways, and so on. And on top of that, we have a Windows-based layer that can either be physical servers or virtual machines on a hyper-converged environment, which is basically this part here on the bottom here, right? So what we've done with Zededa, expanding Delta V now to not only be limited to those two environments, but go into a more IT environment, the edge environment, and then finally to the cloud, was actually use the Zededa technology, their technology stack, to build what we call the Delta V edge environment. And I'll have a video here that's going to show you some details on how it looks like. But fundamentally, you can think about as a new node that is connected to the Delta V infrastructure through a secure encrypted unidirectional protocol with the option to have a data diode, where we replicate the data in its context. So you have all the hierarchy, all the details on your plant here. So any data scientist, any process engineer can go there, manipulate the data, generate reports, put AI tools, send data or prepare the data to train an AI model in the cloud. They can do whatever they want without actually having any physical access to the Delta V control system. And that's how we combine the modern approach that Zededa brings through their technology stack with the required cybersecurity and isolation of a control system. And Raghu talked about that. You can deploy as many nodes as you want, and we leverage their cloud-based orchestration where you can actually manage all the nodes in terms of updates, provisioning, starting, stopping, deploying applications from a central location in pretty much the way IT would like to do. So we leverage the Zededa solution, which is basically an open source based on open standards as well. It's starting with an OS, an open Linux distribution OS called Eve, which is a very lightweight, like we always want it to be, very lightweight, secure is embedded, like Raghu said, and provides a very special virtualization offering, because we can actually seamlessly virtualize both virtual machines and containers. I mean, we love containers, that's the way we're going to go, but we still have to make a provision for all the existing applications out there that may not be suitable for a container. So you can put anything you want in there. We have created a series of data services that bring data from either Delta V through a secure protocol, but you can also bring data from any OPC EUA source. You combine that data here on our databases, and from that point on, you can manipulate the data. You can run any application created by Emerson, created by any other company, created by you, that will manipulate that data, create new data, and then all that data is also available to any application, also running on-prem or in the cloud, all managed by the Zededa edge orchestration. So this was actually a pretty nice partnership in the sense that, as Raghu was saying, it was not just trying to bolt on a pure IT technology into OT. There was a lot of discussions on what was going to be the best way to get all that innovation, all that acceleration that can come from IT, open software, open standards, into a very secure environment. And not only it doesn't require you to go to the next systems and replace everything, but you can actually bring your installed base along. So that's what we valued on this partnership, is actually they're really committed to understand the challenge of the OT space and actually adjust their technology to actually the needs and constraints that we have. So I'm just going to quickly here through a video, so give you a glimpse of what we're preparing. So I'm going to kind of narrate through the video to make it a little bit more interesting, I hope. But this is a video that will show both the solution and the architecture that we have prepared. I already kind of talked about several of the concepts in there. Fundamentally, it's all built on security, and it's basically a way to move data, create that data fabric in a secure and contextualized way. Context is really key here, right? So we connect the Delta V system either to on-prem systems or to the cloud. You've seen this picture already. Through the Zededa stack, which is the OS, the container and VM engine, and we provide the data services. The orchestration comes from VM. This is the agent that we have created that we deploy on Delta V. It creates a one-way encrypted communication where we move data in context, so all the metadata goes there. So you're already secure from that perspective, but if you need to go one step further, you can put a data diode which creates a really physical blockage from people going from the top into the control system. Once that data there is all contextualized, you're replicating the Delta V environment with the areas, units, equipment, modules, and bringing that data is as easy as building a smart list or dragging and drop from the Delta V side. Then that data is going to be replicated with its context in there. And from that point on, you can run any application on the containers or virtual machines. For example, you can, if you're a Power BI fan, you can deploy Power BI and generate dashboards in there. If you want to do some configuration, you can use Node-RED with JavaScript, Python. You can do Grafana to do your dashboards. You can use any solution, open source or not, available there to actually benefit from your data. You can use Jupyter Notebooks and Python or R to deploy AI in there, either to help you generate the code like everyone is doing right now, or actually to run AI agents to improve your process. The orchestration allows us to manage every node. You have a dashboard where you can see all the nodes, the status, you can provision, update in a very IT-friendly way. And you have the marketplace, both global and local, where you can deploy the applications. Once you create your own application, you put on the marketplace and you can deploy to all your edge nodes. And once it's there, you connect to the cloud and beyond and building that very tightly integrated. So we're not giving away the benefits of the control systems today. We're expanding that into 4 environments: the embedded, the virtualized local environment, the edge environment that connects to IT, and the cloud environment. And you can get a lot more information on the web. So appreciate the opportunity to be here with you, Raghu. That has been a great, great partnership. Okay, thank you.
Perfect. We have some time. Any questions? Come on, there should be more than one. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the EVOS and your market, from Emerson's perspective, market acceptance of putting that down on the edge appliances in the field? Has there any been resistance or?
No, I mean I think one of the beautiful things here is that we're not putting the EVOS would work with any other infrastructure in there. So the adoption from that perspective is great. It helps us to put a very lightweight virtualization, which doesn't require us the need to build a very complex installation, because in the end of the day, a lot of our customers already have an IT infrastructure. So what we're doing there is actually making sure that we be the best way to bridge without forcing them to change anything. So it really helps us to make Delta V the right player to connect them in a simplified way to whatever IT infrastructure they have. If they don't have, or if you're looking for a new edge infrastructure because you need to build it from scratch, you can definitely expand that in many ways or do it in a different way. But I think it's that interoperability, is that engagement, is that collaboration that actually made us go that way. I don't know, Raghu, if you want to comment that.
I mean, it's a great question, and like I think like the meta question behind it is like, hey, is it accepted in every industry, everyone? Because I might have my own Linux operating system that is blessed by the corporate, right? So we have EVOS that is first of all done as part of open source, and that's one of the reasons why we did it as open source. Open source is secure by nature because it is open to everyone. You goes through all the cycles in terms of vulnerability tracking to everything, but also you have the code to look at it. But we do understand that that is the ideal thing and there is a reality. And so what we do at Zededa, working with the Eve community, is creating different variants of Eve, which will now can run on a Red Hat based Linux, or it can run on a SUSE based Linux. It can run on a CentOS or a Debian based Linux. And that makes it easy for our customers to consume it now, because they don't have to go away from their corporate policy.
Maybe I went too fast and got everyone scared.
Come on, we have, I thought like when we looked at the whole thing, like, oh, we are going to run over. There should be more than one question. Yes, sir.
Claudio, could you talk a little more about the edge environment and how the user, if you will, determines or has to choose what data to pick, or how does the data actually mirrored, or how does it work in terms of replicating the whole Delta V system?
Sure. And I think that's a big piece, and we see it as a critical thing in many ways, because we talk a lot, like we talked this week, about AI and the potential of AI. And we've been on a lot of those discussions. And there's always this assumption, right, that we're going to put AI or expert systems and the data is available. Reality is, I mean, digital transformation projects over the years, a lot of them realize that the data is not available. And the data that is available cannot always be used because it doesn't have the context. So unless you really know what each number means, it's hard to put it there. So by actually moving the data and the context to that environment with the data in there, what we're doing is we're enabling queries where you don't need to know the context of the data. You can say, what is the status of my unit 1? And because it's all contextualized, it can give it to you. So it makes it actually much more practical to get the data there with the context where you can query it. You can move that data on a graph database, either on the edge or into the cloud. And then it increases the amount of use case you can actually execute in the edge. We talked about democratized data, and that's a big part of it. I mean, moving data is not a new thing. I mean, we've been moving data with Modbus, with OPC UA, you name it, right? We have more protocols than we probably need, but the data goes to the other side, and if you don't know what they are, it's a number, 100. Is it flow? Is it temperature? Is it Fahrenheit? Is it Celsius? Is it unit 1, unit 2? So you have to replicate and find your way to build that context again. By moving the context, you don't need that, and you create a lot more powerful data sets that can either be used to train AI or just have queries and more sophisticated reporting in a very secure way. We're showing it here connect to the Delta V because that's the kind of the native integration. But when you bring now more OPC data, if you can bring the context as well, you now create a whole ability to analyze your whole plant. So that's how we see the edge being very critical. And it's also that transformation or that connection, that bridge, right? Because we have OT, there's a lot of good reasons why OT has some of the characteristics it has, and there is IT, and we need to bridge. We talk about the IT-OT convergence, right, today, and we need that convergence, but we need to understand the different requirements on both sides. So that's the critical aspect of the edge, making that IT-OT convergence real, and make the data available in the right way that can be used by people and by AI with its context. So that's how we see it. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
If there are no questions,
Good.
I'm getting the signal that I need to wrap up. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claudio.
Appreciate it.